Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast. This is Angelique, Lady Powerhouse Solutions, and Laura was having internet issues, so she may or may not be with us today, but we do have an awesome guest with us today. And Laura, how do you say your last name?
Reagan, Laura
Okay.
Lyles-Reagan.
All right, Laura Lyles-Reagan. And Laura is a sociologist specializing in interactionism, communication dynamics, and the sociology of childhood and adolescence. She is a former instructor in the sociology of childhood and adolescence at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Valley. All of a sudden, I slipped into Valley Girl. Um, Her original research, Dynamic Duos, about adult mentor and parent impact on youth and teens, was featured on the Journal of Applied Science in 2013. Laura's teen and parent coaching service has trained teens, parents, and parent educators nationwide. Her youth development career spans service in Mexico City as a youth substance abuse counselor to nonprofit management. Quite a span there, and we're going to get into talking about that. She conducts workshops on hot topics such as teen parent communication, not teen parents, but teen to parent communication, substance abuse, bullying prevention. Wow, what an important thing to be talking about, bullying prevention, and teen suicide prevention, also a really, really important topic. So, Laura, thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So, one of the things that popped out at me first thing on the intake form for you was what you said about abundance mindset. So, I want to jump right into that because that's something that we typically do talk about on each of the episodes. And so, your take on abundance mindset, which I totally agree with, is it's not a get rich quick thing, right? Abundance is abundance mindset. So talk about that and what your idea is about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that topic. I think that I first embraced this about 20 years ago in my first business, which is Creative Alignment Consulting, and it's nonprofit consulting because I did nonprofit management in about 5 different nonprofits over the years. And if you think as a nonprofit, oh, we're just a charity and we got to work on the shoestring budget, you're just never going to go anywhere. And I got good at the grant writing to draw in funds from outside sources and funders and foundations and things like that. And it really was about persuasive selling, selling the story of the cause, whatever that cause was. Yeah. And most of my work focused on youth development. And that's why my coaching practice became about youth and parent communication, right? But if I approach them from, oh, poor us, we're in a poverty stricken area, there's not a lot of, economic strength to draw on for our cause. So we really need outside help. If I did that, proposals didn't win. If I talked about, yes, the need in the area, but the innovation of the way that we were tackling that need, then people want to fund winners. They get excited about being a part of something that's working. And so you demonstrate in your grant writing proposal how things are unfolding, to fulfill your mission in big and small ways. And that success is what sells. So that was my first little hint, right? About how you positioned the mindset, how you positioned the strategy would then draw in funding and abundance. So I took that to my own personal life. Oh no, I've got this big, huge tax bill coming. How's that going to happen?
Right.
And being able to, literally, we just spoke about it off camera, but speak that into being, but not necessarily directly. It sometimes comes in, oh, good, I can have a savings of $2,000 over here that will then allow me to fund this $5,000 tax bill because, as self-employed people.
Yes.
We pay taxes in a different bracket. We pay taxes differently, and or I might choose to pay by quarters that particular year versus a one lump sum, or I might, maneuver a 401k or a savings account in a different way. There was always a way to look at it differently. There was always a different set of glasses to put on. And so as I began to do that in my business and in grant writing, I began to do that in my personal finance. And then for me personally, the huge abundance comes in the freedom of being a solopreneur, of being a entrepreneur. Is I have a preemie baby who is now 36 years old, and she is on her 10th surgery. She has, multiple disabilities. We've had multiple challenges. She's amazing. She's resilient. She has a powerful presence, but she has required family support in a way that is maybe non-traditional. And so my abundance has not necessarily shown up as dollars, but it has, from time to time. It's shown up in the ability to just really freely be present in my family's life. And I absolutely love that. I would not construct my life any differently even if she didn't have a disability or multiple disabilities, is because it just gives me the freedom to be present. My mom is actually on end of life care and hospice right now, and I'm about to move to her town for 3 months and just be her primary caregiver because I want to be there. And how do I get to do that?
Right.
It's through these businesses. And what a joy, to not have to define life in the traditional patriarchal, I make X amount of money. But no. I get to be present because
Yes.
I have the flexibility to make money differently.
And I think defining abundance in that way is new, especially for men, because, they're the main breadwinner. They're the one that's supposed to
Well, they're
provide.
perceived to be the main breadwinners, right? I mean,
Correct. Correct. They've set themselves up for that.
right.
And I in my family, I've been the main breadwinner the majority of my children's lives. My oldest daughter is the main breadwinner in her family. My youngest daughter is a single mom. So we're and I had two daughters, and they're adults now and very strong women. But this idea that abundance is dollar signs
Right.
versus, like you're saying, the time freedom and the flexibility, that's an abundance that you can't put a monetary value on. I mean, you can,
Right.
just like you can put a monetary value on all the things us moms do unpaid, right? Like if you had to pay somebody to do that,
Right.
and we know how expensive that would be. And so
Exactly.
the value of it. But I know for me, the abundance mindset, it is about changing how you speak about your value, not just your business, but your life, your worthiness. It's
Right.
about how you speak about yourself, about your life, about it's all encompassing, right? It's not just about business. And that was a valuable lesson that I was sharing before we started the recording, was that I just learned a few years ago and started practicing. And this idea that abundance is, you just say it and it happens. And that isn't the whole picture. That's part of the picture. Yes.
Right. You're speaking about, my wheelhouse, which is communication, both my training and my lived experience in my family. And then what I do in my second business, Heart to Heart Parents and Coaching, is communication is a mirror. It reflects who we are from the depths of our soul. It reflects what the relationship looks like, my relationship to finances, my relationship, to the universe,
Yes.
my relationship to families. So it is just a mirror. That's all it is. It bounces back that frequency that I have. And so if I can step into the energy is, I am enough, I have enough, there's abundant resource, available to me.
Yes.
Why am I poor
I
mouthing,
love it.
you
I
know,
love it.
you just step into that energy. And as I do that, the abundance flows. And I have amazing, months where I pull in 10,000 from coaching. And then I have smaller months where I may only pull in 2,000 from coaching. And that's okay. Why? Because it's where I put the gas. That may be a month where I put the gas on my family relationships,
Yeah.
and that's all right. I know that when I'm ready to put the focus and the energy elsewhere, it'll flow. I just
I love that.
trust it, you know.
Yes.
So my bottom line may not look like everybody else's, but my living expenses are so small as a solopreneur, that
Yes.
they're huge wins to me,
Yeah.
and the freedom is the bliss.
Yeah. That's awesome. And, one of the other valuable lessons that I learned was that it's not just about saying and verbalizing, but putting the action
Mm-hmm.
behind it. So planning as if, acting as if, um,
Right.
and, and, and I saw how powerful that was. I was not doing anything extravagant. I was simply putting action and energy
Right.
behind my belief and my mindset. And wow.
Yeah.
So very cool. I love it. And so you talked about you went from grant writing
Mm-hmm.
to now you're coaching and this transition and how that happened. Let's talk about that.
Sure. And I'm still grant writing. I have a handful of clients, nonprofits that are causes I care about that I still write for, that I still help them fundraise. It's a different muscle, and I
Mm-hmm.
never want to turn my back on that. Um, I think on that way to serve, because I
Yeah.
really do see my business as a service because it fed my family. It got two girls through college. It's a worthy business with very little overhead, and I can again step on the gas and really turn it on and make money. My win record for nonprofits in my small area of South Texas is $66 million over 30 years, and that's for small nonprofits. So we're not even talking major school districts. Um, so the money flows because of that reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the bridge, I think, was in my own story of, personal recovery from both family addiction and divorce was my family with my teen girls. I had two girls too, needed to heal, and I needed to apply my sociological training and communication to my own family life and live what I was learning, live what I preached about in youth
Mm-hmm.
development. And that took time. I didn't grow up with the best communication models. My dad was alcoholic and later recovered and had 31 years sobriety by the time he passed away. And I'm super grateful for that. I'm super grateful for the healing we had in our relationship. But my early years were not,
Right.
about positive communication. And I, like many of us, needed reparenting myself. And
Yes.
did that work and needed to bring that to how I parented. So that's a lot of what my business in Heart to Heart Parents is all about is how to use this communication mirror we were talking about with abundance
Mm-hmm.
to communicate respectfully to my teens, as they're growing and changing and they were pushing on, the boundaries as they should developmentally. Um, I had to embrace those changes and communicate effectively with them.
Yeah. And so your story of resilience is one that I definitely want you to share because that's kind of why we started the podcast was that we were out there looking for other women that were doing what we were doing and were struggling to see how they were managing. Like,
Right.
how do you deal with this? And we weren't finding it. So that's what we like to talk about is this was the hardship or the challenge that I faced. This is how I personally dealt with it because there's always someone that can relate to your
Sure,
story.
sure. Actually, 25% of us, of the general population in Western culture, grew up in alcoholic homes or a home where a
Wow.
parent had a mental
I
illness.
did not know that.
And of that 25%, 80% of us will go on to be alcoholic ourselves or marry someone
That's the
with alcohol.
statistic that we tend to hear.
Yeah. So it's prevalent, this is basic sociology. Addiction is part of our lives. But the win is that the only recovery comes through a spiritual growth process.
So, what was that like for you?
I'm blessed to have almost 22 years of sobriety now. So I really was in denial about my own drinking patterns. It was never going to happen to me. I have to go back to my childhood. I will never do that. It will never happen to
Right.
me. And then, of course, I picked up because that was the stressor. Not an excuse. I'm responsible for what I did.
Right.
I'm just saying that because that was the norm for how to deal with stress in my family, it was an easy escape. And once I picked up, I was off to the races. I truly believe in the what do you call it? The predisposition towards addiction that is biochemical. Yes, there is trauma issues involved. I don't deny that, but we've gone with the pendulum swing of it's all about trauma, 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 and need for trauma recovery, and we've forgotten about the genetic code, and that alcoholics really do process alcohol differently. There's a chemical called tetrahydrogenase isoquinoline that is in alcoholic brains that is not in the norm.
I feel like I should say, God bless you. That was a mouthful.
It was. And as a substance abuse counselor, I had to learn all that. But we really do process and metabolize alcohol differently than others. And it's hyper addictive, more than the general population. So
I did not know that part either.
it's a disease. It's literally a disease. And it has a beginning, a progression, and an end. And the end is, institutionalized, to be institutionalized, whether that's jail or the insane asylum,
Right.
which is what it was way back when, or death, or we go to jail. So,
Or you recover.
or you recover. That's the other choice, right? And I really do think that there is this wonderful mixture of life that, yay, as the train takes off, that's such a great metaphor. There's a mixture between us being ready and choosing kind of a spiritual emotional readiness, and then there's a grace involved that meets us where we are and gives us the tools that we need to see ourselves, to again look at that communication mirror, have those trusted others in our lives that reflect back, and break the denial. And that's what it was like for me. I saw how I was drinking. I saw how emotionally unavailable I was to my kids later. I chose a divorce. I did not. My spouse did not leave as a result of the alcoholism because I hid it. I hid what I was drinking, and lost myself. That's what happens is we lose who we are to the addiction. And I was, because of my training, able to go, oh no, this is me. Look what's happening. Who do I think I am that I would be bigger than this disease? And I worked a program. I found support mentors and built sobriety one day at a time.
And how did that? Because I know, especially for women, but often, there is no real defined line between life and doing the mom things and the
and
right,
the business things as entrepreneurs, right?
right.
I think that sobriety helped me embrace my creativity. It's like, okay, you're different. You metabolize alcohol differently than the general population. Guess what? You're different across the board. Right? And so my degree of study was different. How I wrote was different. I couldn't process a 9-to-5 job. Not that I couldn't do it. It's just, it felt like slavery to my soul. And I needed the creative outlet of entrepreneurship. And it pushed me, to make money because I had 2 girls to feed as a single mom. And they eventually went to college on these businesses, are the result of these businesses. So I'm grateful for that pressure cooker because it made me figure it out and make the entrepreneurship work. Asking lots of questions of mentors, these days there is a wealth of information online. You don't have to go to business school.
Right, right.
There's a way to make that work. I think that my degree in sociology helped me kind of get in the airplane and see how the social
Yeah.
were moving and what could be fundable and what wasn't. So I just used what I had, both my story. I'm not holding myself up as a parent coach as the perfect parent, right? But I'm saying we struggled with this, and here's what worked for us, and it is
Yes, yes.
research based, and so other families that are struggling with similar issues, whether that's divorce, family alcoholism, teen trauma and
I
drama.
mean, and what family isn't
Kind
struggling with
of that.
something?
Right. Right.
So it's all relatable and applicable to some extent.
Right. And
Um,
and I think really getting clear on what your story is, how you want to serve, how you want to show up, on the planet to be contribute, whatever that is really really helpful to making the businesses a success, to making the businesses work.
and we're
I,
so fortunate now that the that there are so many coaches out there, that coaching is a thing now. Like,
Mhm.
I don't remember when I was growing up that there was this such an availability of mentoring and coaching, especially for women. I didn't see that growing up. I
Right.
didn't see it in high school even. I didn't
I
see
mean, I
it.
think about what my role model was. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and before we came along, she taught school for a few years, and then I think once we went to high school, junior high, she went to be an office manager in a credit union, so she used her mathematics, right? And so it was institutional work, 9 to 5. It was really hard for her. She had a period of being a single parent as well. Um, and so to create was not even in the thought patterns. It wasn't even available to her. And so for me to do it, and then with what the world would perceive as deficits, to flip that and go, wait. This is a marketable skill. How I parented through difficulty is a marketable skill. How you show up abundantly in fundraising is a marketable skill. How I can
Mhm.
then teach that to others is a marketable skill. So putting those pieces of your story together that can then serve can be really, really powerful, not only to feed yourself, but, be a life of purpose.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of times this mindset of being of service.
Mhm.
And, I think that I, I'll be honest, I personally, sometimes I struggle with that because I've been one of those people that's always been of service. And now I'm going through a time in my life where I have to stop giving so much
Mhm.
and keep more for me, make myself like the prior, like put the oxygen mask on, people. Like that's the phase I'm in right now, is I've got my oxygen mask on, and that is what is my priority. Finally in my life, I'm taking care of myself first before I am taking care of everyone else. And
Yeah.
as a parent, especially of a mom, a single mom, or a parent that is struggling with anything financially, addiction, uh, the dysfunctional upbringing, all the things, I can see how that isn't a priority because you're just trying to survive. And giving ourselves grace, now that I look back and I go, okay, I have to give myself grace because at that point in my life, that's what was going on. But now I'm in this season of my life where the oxygen mask is the top priority. And so I just bring that up because I don't want to feel guilty about not being of service right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so I don't want other women to feel guilty for not being of service right now.
Understood. Understood. And
And
let me reframe that, if I may. I
yes,
hear 100% what you're saying, that radical self-care is a priority for women because first of all, we aren't taught those skills. That goes back to basic sociology 101 too. That's not in our culture, and women are socialized to give. So I understand 100% what you're saying. However, service is not sacrifice. And that is the model that we're brought up with, is that women must
amen.
sacrifice who they are
Yes,
in order to be of service to others. And that's not the kind of service I'm talking about.
thank
I'm
you.
talking about finding, in fact, sacrifice is counter to being of service, is what I've learned. It's the opposite of service. Service is being in flow with what my life's purpose is meant to be.
Yes,
And, you are of service. You're doing this podcast. You're giving voice to women who are, building businesses and lives.
that's
And
right.
you are being of service because you're a parent, modeling what that looks like to have your own voice, be heard and be useful to other women. Your girls are seeing that, and I understand they are their own women in their own
Yes,
right, but it does matter. They don't have to figure it out the way you and I did, because having a stay-at-home mom, I didn't have a model for what it was like to balance work and life. And I saw how
right.
incredibly hard it was, for her. It wasn't something that looked real appetizing. So, I just want to say that thank you for giving me the chance to clarify that service is not sacrifice to me.
Yeah,
You know,
and I thank you for bringing that up because that is a story I had in my head. Was
right,
that, oh, service equals sacrifice? But you're so right that it doesn't. It shouldn't.
right.
And I don't want to should on anybody, especially myself. But
Right, right, sure. I mean, I guess that's why I'm emphasizing story so much about my business life. My personal story is because I don't feel that I'm at a deficit here. I'm able to make money based on my story, right? Based on my training, and I'm able to do it creatively. And I don't keep a 9 to 5 job. There are days when I work 2 hours a week. I mean, 2 hours a day. You know, there's other days where I work 12 because I planned it that way. That freedom is just paramount to me. I'm gearing up to hike the the Appalachian Trail. I've been exploring
very cool.
Cherokee roots, and the Smoky Mountains are there, and there's a myth attached to every mountain that is amazing to learn. And I wouldn't have that freedom if I hadn't done this work of flow, and that my business flows out of my spiritual journey
Yeah.
and my story, right? So it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like sacrifice to work anymore. It doesn't feel like sacrifice to serve others, because it's all in the flow of who I'm becoming.
Very cool. Sorry, and I am waving off a fly. If anybody's watching the video and my arms are going, I am doing the recording from my car today. So um, I have the windows open so I won't die.
The
And
heat,
that means the
summer.
buggies are getting in. Um, and I think that for for me growing up, service was very much how I was brought up to identify. In the church, you needed to be of service. You needed to
Yes,
serve in the church.
that was my background.
Um, yeah, and that's where it brought you your value and your worth. And so
Mm-hmm.
reprogramming that. And obviously, here I am in my 50s, still in the process of doing that. And that's okay. I'm okay with people
Yeah,
seeing
you're
that.
breaking those patterns. And I feel like I'm breaking those patterns, but by seeing my my personality, my story, my mission, all of that is one, not having it be divided, but having congruency kind of being a watchword for personal life and business.
Yeah.
That's so when you hear, I almost feel like it's a male patriarchal term, work-life balance, because
Mm,
women don't do that.
mm-mm.
We have lives, and we have lives that are messy, and it's with kids and it's with business. And the I hear what you're saying about the more in touch I am with who I am, you know um, then the better I'll flow inside of those roles.
Yeah. And I love what you say about flow, because I'm in a position too right now, or season, that there are some days I can only work a couple hours physically.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other days where I get in the flow of something, and I can work for 8 hours.
And it's fun. Yeah.
And it flies
Yeah.
by. Like, the time just flies by. And again, having the freedom to do that.
Right.
And consciously, intentionally structuring our days and our weeks in a way that fosters that and allows space for it also has been another form of abundance, that I think people don't think about or realize, or take advantage of, like, not in a bad way, but, um, a friend and fellow entrepreneur mentioned at some point that, oh, I don't do any calls the last week of the month so that I can focus on project work, making sure everything's done for that month, but also setting me up well for the following month, so that I'm not starting behind. I'm not feeling like,
Pressured. Right.
yes. And I was like, that is genius. I'm so doing that.
Right.
And do I break the rules? Is it like this hard stop? No, but I've just closed my calendar, and then if I want to add appointments, I can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's, just another piece of the abundance. And like you're talking about, understanding your flow and where you are in your journey. And I like, in the past, I have said there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's a fallacy. It's a lie that we've been sold. There's no such thing. There is this thing I like to think of as alignment. And if I'm in
Mm-hmm.
alignment,
Mm-hmm.
then this balance just kind of happens.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not balance as in, oh, I work 8 hours and I play 8 hours. No, 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 no. But the alignment of work feeling like play.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant about service isn't sacrifice anymore. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Something you spoke of, and it wasn't direct, but it reminded me of something that's recently happened to me. You'll hear, and I don't want to rag on men, but you'll hear male coaches talking about intentionality, right? And I tried that on for a while. I mildly thought about my research-based communication program for parents and teens being a package that other therapists and coaches could use. Thought of, well, maybe one day I'll write that up in that way, because I do have a book out, right? How to Raise Respectful Parents. But it just so happens that I had a couple and family in the UK that were using my materials, and the dad is a trainer of chaplains, and he's a cognitive behavioral therapist. And he said, have you ever thought about franchising your materials? Because I see how it works, and it works differently than therapy. It's skills based. I get it. I really want to use this in my practice, and who knows, maybe other folks want to use it too. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, that's funny, because I was actually thinking one day in my 5-year business plan down the road, after I hike the AT, I might write that up that way. But he came asking. And so it really speaks to the thing that you talked about, alignment. You know, you, you don't have to have these huge 5-10 year business plans. You don't have to have, the map about how to grow your business. Women are so incredibly relational, and we can use every relationship to benefit both the cause, whatever that cause is, our own business or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and our souls at the same time, you
Yeah.
know, and because you show up open-hearted, offering what you have to the planet, the alignment allows you to be found in a way that works for you. Well, we just signed the dotted line on a franchise deal,
Awesome.
and who would have known
Yeah.
that, somebody with perceived character defects, like, alcoholism and divorce and whatever, can show up as someone that's research based, helping other families with real lived experience make their lives work.
Yeah.
And what a blessing, what a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sales strategist mentor, Renee Rebar, who talks about everybody's a collaborator, client, or contributor, meaning somebody that you can
Oh, I love that.
do that with. And so it really speaks to this holistic view of what you're talking about, not just alignment, but that women use relationships differently, than the traditional business model that we've all think that we have to measure ourselves against.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the networking aspects.
Yeah.
Like, the BNIs and the more structured networking platforms. And, I've been hosting some networking sessions for going on a couple of years. And, it's been great. And it's completely unstructured.
Right. Right.
Like I just want to get together, meet you, get to know you. Let's, connect afterwards if we feel like there's a good connection there, and build the relationship from there and see where it goes. It feels kind of counterintuitive. Why are you wasting all this time and energy on a relationship that may
Angelique, I
go?
lost you. If it's still recording, you
Yes, it should
froze
be.
on my end.
That's okay. Let's see. It looks like I have all my bars. Can you hear me again yet? Because now you're frozen up, Laura. All right. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Yeah. And that was one thing I forgot to mention before we started recording was that if that happens, it's okay because this platform buffers and then the end result will look
Oh,
okay.
lovely. Okay.
Yes. That's why we use it. But yeah. And so it feels counterintuitive, but it's really not.
Right.
And I've connected with so many people, and I love what you said about they're either a collaborator, a contributor, or a client.
Right.
And that's what I have found is almost every single person I've connected with that has maintained a relationship and connection. We've either collaborated, they've become a client, or they've contributed in some way or another. I to them or them to me. They've been a podcast guest or whatever. A blog, they did a guest blog, what have you.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think, personally, I believe that's because we as women show up with our whole selves. We show up open hearted. Not that we don't have our own unique traumas and damages, but we show up with our whole stories, right? I mean, it's not just I am, a widget salesperson. It's I have two kids and I have,
Yes.
I'm from this small town and I now live in this huge metro area. And, we show up with our whole selves. And that's why the networking works with women in a way that it might not necessarily work with men because it's not as transactional.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word that was coming up for me as well, was that it's not about, I'll refer this many people to you, now you refer this many people to me.
Right.
And, that just never felt good. That feels very, I don't know, transactional.
Yeah.
And cold.
It's not in alignment
Removed.
to how women work. Our thinking
Yes.
is so circular, so relational.
Well, before we run out of time, I do want you to be able to share. You've got your book and you've got some other resources on your website.
Yes, I'm so tickled. It's an award-winning book, How to Raise Respectful Parents. And it will introduce you to the conscious communication skills I use to not only heal my family, but guide other families through those trials and tribulations and mood swings of adolescence. And my website, lauralreagan.com, has at least 2 or 3 freebies on it. One is 12 Steps to Raising Teens, and that's all about reparenting ourselves while we parent, and working through our past issues so that we show up as emotionally available as possible with our kids. And then the nuts and bolts one is conscious conversation starters to use with your teens. If you've got a teen that's shut down and not opening up about their lives, which, hello, that happens.
Yeah.
There's a list of questions to download there that will kick off conversations that don't bring up those defensive reactions. That would be fun to share. I've got another freebie, conflict-free conversation guides, that takes a couple of those communication skills and uses them in, real world examples. So there's a lot of free resources on that website, lauralreagan.com. I'd love to share that with you and get, your listeners on my mailing list so they can follow those.
Absolutely.
I'm putting out tips and helps and new content all the time. I've got a Facebook group as well called Brave Parents Raising Teens.
Gosh, you'd have to be a brave parent. So every parent's a brave parent because every kid goes through the teen years. Right. And if we survive, right?
Yeah. The scary part right now is that we're facing a U.S. Teen mental health crisis. And, I have a really different take on that than traditional psychology does, because I get in the airplane and look at the bird's eye view, and it really is about building the support networks under teens. And each of us, I don't care if you have kids or not, needs to be a part of that solution making, helping kids map out their support networks. Yeah. Because it's when they feel isolated that the scary stuff starts to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that isolation often will begin with the bullying that is so prevalent right now that I don't remember. I mean, I remember getting teased and stuff as a kid, but the internet has changed that so much because it's so easy to hide behind a screen.
Right.
And so, if you're listening and you're like, well, I'm a parent, what does this have to do with being an entrepreneur? Everything. Because especially if you're a solopreneur or a mompreneur or a dadpreneur, because I do share with my, clients and people that I network with, this podcast isn't just for women. Mm-hmm. It's also for people who their target audience is women. It helps you better understand your target market. And your target market is juggling a lot of balls, and one of those main balls, one of the bigger ones, or for like my daughter who has 5 kids, she's juggling 5 different responsibilities for each child, multiple responsibilities for each child, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, school things, all the things. And if that is out of hand or you're going through a rough patch, that affects your ability to concentrate at work, to get shit done, to
how minimize... you get groceries. I mean, so it really does affect economy. It's really, really critical. I don't think there's any role in life that is closer to our hearts than our parenting. And parents feel isolated and burned out like never before because we don't have the societal structures under us like we used to. Yeah. So it's really important. The good news about that is we get to co-create our support systems now. The hard part is we can't rely on that being done for us in culture. And we have to intentionally do it. And that's kind of the next level of work that I want to do, is supporting parents in a different way.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining.
I loved this
today. It's been a fantastic conversation. And really appreciate you sticking it out with us through all of the technical difficulties, or as we like to call them, technical dickies.
Love that.
So thank you again, Laura, for being with us today. And we will see you guys next week. We're Mondays at 12 Eastern. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to end the recording, but hang in for just a second with me because